morning. I'm going to be very brief because I recognize that we're short on time. There's a lot to talk about in terms of this topic, and I can talk very fast, so if I'm going too fast, just wave your hand. Because this topic can be vast in terms of... So I'm going to address two key topics that are basically the pillar of trust. Michael earlier talked about trust in digital space, and unfortunately I didn't know that he was going to talk about identity, because if I know, I could make my topic much more related, because I just happen to be the person who designed Thai National Digital ID project right now. Any of you could ask me a question about that later. So I'm going to talk about two topics, cybersecurity and data privacy. That's because it's a hot topic everywhere in the world, and especially Thailand, because we just very recently, when I say recently, I mean like 20 days ago, we just had these two laws on the book, right? Cybersecurity Act and Data Privacy Act. And I participated in the entire process of drafting this law up to the very end, pushing it with the belief that these two laws play pillar role in the trust in digital economy and digital transformation in Thailand. The law at the end of the day didn't look exactly like what I hoped it would be, but cybersecurity, these are statistics today. 90% of attacks, 90+% of attacks these days begin with a phishing email. How many of you in this room have either been victim of one or know someone who's victim of one? I personally get phone call at least once every other week of friends who get hit by phishing email that leads to some other disaster. In fact, I almost wanted to create a flow chart and just post it online. It says, if this happened to you, these are the things you have to do. Because I literally have to repeat it to my client and my friends all the time, right? And then cost of online crime is rising every year. That's normal. The third statistic is it takes organization half a year to detect that breach happens on average. And when we say on average, that means some people are doing really well and some people are doing really poor. Imagine if this means that some bad guys are basically walking around inside your network for half a year before you realize they're in there. Right? This is global statistics. ASEAN perform worse than global statistics. We don't have specific survey in ASEAN because it's done not as frequently as global, but that statistic is 2017 global. Half a year. That is actually getting worse over time. As more and more business invest, we expect it to get better, as it will move from 6 months to 5 months to 4 months. But it turns out 3 years ago, that statistics was 165 days. And in 3 years, it moved to 180 days. More investment doesn't solve this problem for some reason. And it turns out that 43% of cyber attacks these days are aimed at small business, which is another scary statistics, because most small business think we're small fry, nobody's going to hack us, right? They're all going for the banks. Actually, that's not true. Small business. So any of you who have clients that are small businesses, this is something that they're going to run into as they employ more digital transformation. And the last statistic is very interesting. IoT attack went up 600% in 2017. Statistic for 2018 isn't out yet. It's up 600%, which means IoT devices are at risk more than ever. Now, if you look at the data privacy side of things, since 2005, which is basically the biggest breach that we've had, 9,000 breach since, it hasn't been 9,000 days since, right? So that's the point of that statistics. 81% of consumers says they're worried about their data, rightly so, and 87% thinks companies with data should be regulated. That is a staggeringly high statistic, which means people are really worried about what digital business and big tech, but not just big tech, banks and everyone else is doing with their data. So this is the evolution of threat, right? It began with just hacking and then just traditional cybercrime, people hacking each other. And we start to see in the past decade prevalence in terms of cyber espionage, basically a more extensive campaign to strategically disrupt things that happen in the economy or in terms of national security. And we're moving into the age of cyber terrorism and cyber warfare. This is why statistics are getting worse and worse and worse. So equipping themselves with these capabilities. In reality, from academic point of view, future looks really bleak for small business. really, really bleak for small business. I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but that's what I do most of the time. And to combat that, most countries work passing these two laws. Thailand is one of the last in the world. We're a little bit behind everyone else. With these two laws, we're catching up very quickly. And I wish I can tell you more in detail about these two laws, but given the time that we have, it's impossible because it typically takes me 3 hours for each law. And I only have about 5 minutes left. There are lots of details, but the goal of these laws, really, the goal of Cybersecurity Act is to define what businesses and organizations are considered important in Thailand in terms of information infrastructure and what are their responsibilities. So in this room, very many people are considered CAI, but for sure David and his DTAC is definitely CAI. He'll find out in like 100 days. And I can tell him right now that DTAC will definitely be one of the CII, which means there will be responsibility, right? And there will be jail sentence if they don't do things the right way. I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but that's what I do all the time. It set out to set up government strategy and policy and agency and national cybersecurity response framework for when disasters strike. When someone hacked into our favorite telecom network, similar to what happened to Singapore last year, and causes it to go down half a day. If that happens in Thailand, government with this law will have the power to intervene, to command business to participate and respond to government demand to fix things. That's the point of that law. That law is somewhat controversial because there are power in there that is quite broad. So we'll have to figure out how to prevent abuse of power in there. For the second law, Personal Data Protection Act, for some reason it turns out it is basically GDPR. Anyone read the Thai Personal Data Protection Act? Unfortunately, we don't have an English translation, but if you ask Thai friend to read it for you, and then you just hand him a copy of GDPR and says, is this a valid copy, a valid translation of Thai PDPA? Your friend will say it's 95% valid. Right? It is 95% GDPR translation. In fact, some section of it is direct translation from GDPR. So for those businesses that are familiar with GDPR, you'll find home here very quickly. I also hate to be bringer of bad news, but unlike GDPR, which give European business 2 years, and unlike California Data Protection Act, which give businesses 2 years. Thai PDPA actually wanted to give Thai people 180 days, and I fought tooth and nail to give us 1 year, and that's all we got. And when I say 1 year, we're at 11.3 months left, and I'm literally counting down. I'm an advisor to 4 private companies, and I'm fighting very hard to make sure 4 of them stay compliant from day 1, May 27th next year. Okay. Good luck, everyone. This law set out to give Thai people rights in terms of their data and give businesses that control data responsibility. I also hate to be bringer of bad news, but there's one more bad news. Thai PDPA law is, as far as I know, and I looked at many countries' law, but as far as I know, it is the only data protection act in the world with jail sentence built into it. Meaning if you don't do it right, it's 1 year in jail. So once again, this is serious business in Thailand. I think what I told you so far is enough bad news that get more people worried than excited, right? So I always like to bring some good news. Fortunately, given that the regulation and the worry of the consumer is on the bad news side, there are good news, right? There are advances in technology that are going to help solve some of these problems. So AI, we already have David talked about AI just earlier. AI is also very heavily used in cybersecurity and data privacy industry, not just to violate privacy, but also to protect privacy. AI is used in cybersecurity all the time to detect breach, to assist in response process, to predict breach, and there are lots of vendors company. Also a lot from US, but from other countries as well, that are leading in that area. Another technology that Dr. Gandhi would talk about momentarily, so I won't mention too much, is blockchain. Blockchain is set to help solve a lot of problems in both cybersecurity and data privacy. In fact, Thai National Digital ID uses blockchain a little bit to ensure that consent are handled correctly to protect privacy. But it also can be used to protect all sorts of data infrastructure. Unfortunately, blockchain is a bit hard to understand, so 2 minutes won't do justice. So please wait for Dr. Kandi. But the other two technology, biometrics is on the rise, and biometrics is really an application of AI, but a very specific application of AI. And my prediction is that biometric will serve us well for a couple of years, fail us horribly for the next couple of years after that, and then people who do very strong biometric and AI will realize what Michael said earlier, that biometrics and identity shouldn't really be static biometric. I've been a long proponent of what we call continuous biometric authentication, which means that we need to identify individual not just with their face and fingers, but continuously through their behaviors and activities. And I don't know anyone who's working on that actively commercially, but I think in 10 years span, in 10 years time, unless companies that work on AI and biometrics adapt to that vision, I think they're all going to die off. There's a good reason, because from cybersecurity perspective, biometric is no more secure than password. In fact, it's weaker than password. From cybersecurity modeling perspective, it is harder to hack than password right now, only because bad guys haven't got used to this technology. But once they've built enough skill and repertoire, their ability to hack it will be even faster and easier than hacking password. So biometric company needs to move away from static authentication to a more dynamic and continuous authentication very promptly. And lastly, the key technology that makes the other two, that makes blockchain work, and that's going to help solve data privacy in all sorts of ways, cryptography. We're sort of in the golden age of cryptography right now. Cryptography is just like AI. It's a technology that's been around for 50 some years, but unlike AI, where it's been in a movie for 50 some years too, so you've been hearing about it, cryptography has been around for 50 some years, and it's responsible for all sorts of secure activity, but it's going to be even more so. And there are lots that are taking very obscure cryptographic knowledge and making it real. And it can do all sorts of wonderful things. So I recommend people looking at that technology future. Here's the last slide. I want to make sure to impart understanding that cybersecurity and trust in the digital world is not responsible of the government only, and it's not all responsible of consumers, and it's not all responsible of just business, and it's not just technology company. It needs all four segments to work together, right? If one of these three actors refuse to participate in building trust ecosystem, then you won't have it, right? Everyone is responsible. Unfortunately, in my venture, in my work, I deal with all four sides, and I get feeling all the time that everyone think that it's someone else's problem, or everyone think that it's someone, other people shouldn't mess with them. For example, government will say, well, we need a lot of power, otherwise we can't control this. Or business will say, well, government shouldn't touch us at all, right? And in reality, both needs to happen, right? Government needs to have some regulation, but businesses need to also have freedom and ability to innovate. And to do that, we need to find ways to build accountability and responsibility into how business deal with consumer data and consumer cybersecurity. I think many of our laws go a little bit too far to force government, to force private sector to be responsible. Unfortunately, that's because in Thailand there's deep distrust between all four segments. Government don't trust business, don't trust consumer, and don't trust technology company, and the other people don't trust each other at the same time. So I hope that, via participation of all four sides, conversation can happen and make cybersecurity a much more cooperative venture in the future. But unless we can get all four parties to be responsible, I don't think we will have a secure future. Government control will not make us more secure. In fact, it can potentially make us less secure if the control is too stringent, because more innovation can actually make us more secure. So that's what I wanted to end with. Thank you.
All right. In 1997 was the year when the internet in Germany became widely available. And at that time, me being still in my teenage years, I was still very, very sure we have to be in the internet. So I pushed my parents. So what was the reason for that? I think it's nicely summed up in a very popular IBM video at that time, where two gentlemen sit in an office and one says, it says here in the newspaper, the internet is the future of the business. We have to be on the internet. And his friend just asked why, and the answer was, it doesn't say. So I had a similar conversation with my parents, and they were also quite sure, look, we don't think you need the internet right now, because my reason was, I just wanted to write an email to my friend next door. I found it very cool. So now, I think this conversation was summed up by Dr. Amara, a future researcher, saying, we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. And I believe the very same thing happens right now with 5G. So at that time, in 1997, both my parents and I were right. So today we know why we have to be on the internet, and now I can handle the technology. My parents struggle, right? So it's exactly what happened at that point in time. But what is 5G? So what is the actual benefit, and what is the difference to 4G? So 5G can actually do everything that 4G can do, only better. So we talk about an increase of peak data rate from 1 gig to about 20 gig. Just to give you kind of an impression of what that means. Right now, a typical home fiber connection has 50 Mbps speed. Your typical mobile connection, maybe 5, maybe 10 Mbps speed. So we are talking here from very fast to even much faster. Latency is the next feature. So basically the time it takes a robot, for example, to respond to a software command will decrease from 10 milliseconds to 1 millisecond. And this is under very ideal conditions. So this is really maximum standard. Again, to give you some sort of relation, the human eye can typically spot the difference between 10 and 50 milliseconds. So a difference from 10 to 1 milliseconds will be barely perceivable by the human eye. Connection density. Right now, 4G can take about 10,000 devices or sensors or mobile phones on a per square kilometer. With 5G, we will be able to connect 1 billion devices. So right now in Bangkok, we have about 5,000 people living per square kilometer. That means every person in Bangkok right now can connect 2 phones at the same time. That includes also grandmas and babies, etc. So already quite a high connection density we have. Lastly, energy efficiency, I think a very important element of 5G. So we will see a huge increase in energy efficiency. Right now, if you connect an IoT sensor to a mobile network, typically the battery lasts maybe maximum a year. With 5G, that will increase tremendously, and that will have significant impact of how we deliver use cases. Mobility, again, 4G can basically be connected at a speed of 350 kilometers per hour. So if you took a train somewhere in Europe, in Germany, in Japan, you will often notice that your mobile connection basically doesn't work, or does work. So right now, a speed of 350 kilometers per hour, that's about the speed that's planned for the Thai high-speed rail. So 5G will basically be able to connect at a speed of over 500 kilometers per hour. And lastly, and that's I think most important for us mobile operators, spectral efficiency. So basically, what is the efficiency that we can use the airwaves that our network is running on? Well, right now we have the big problem that data consumption is increasing at about 40% every year. Every single year we see an increase of 40% of data going through our network. At the same time, customers are not willing to pay more for their mobile subscription. That means, how do we keep up with that? The answer, we hope, will be in part be 5G. So the question is not so much will 5G come, but what is the impact? So we know it will come simply because otherwise we cannot handle the amount of data and the efficiency that's required today. Now, what does all this give us in terms of benefits? How do we translate this into value for businesses? And with 5G, I brought a chart, you can actually make many, many use cases happen. So from automotive to healthcare, manufacturing, you will see every presentation about 5G will tell you about a lot of interesting, very visionary use cases. An important point is many technologies or many use cases are possible on 5G, but for many, 5G is not strictly required. If you look, for example, at smart manufacturing, even today we see a lot of smart manufacturing applications happen. And the technology that's often used is simply Wi-Fi or fiber connection. So if you can connect a very expensive piece of equipment with a power connection to a power grid, you would also be able to connect it with a fiber cable to the communication. For many use cases, 5G will not be strictly required, and we can actually deliver it today. Now, then there's a second group of use cases where we see we could do it today, but 5G will basically make it more efficient, will maybe enhance the performance. So the most prominent example that we see today is fixed wireless access. Fixed wireless, think of it as your home fiber connection delivered by a mobile network. So it's simply a replacement of your home fiber. We see that AT&T, Verizon right now in the US use that as the very first 5G use case. So today, DTAC is doing this already on the 4G network. So 5G isn't technically a requirement, but it makes the business case much better. And now then we come to a group where 5G is strictly required. So here we are talking about use cases where we strictly need mobility. So we don't have a piece of machinery in the factory that's stationary, but we need something that's able to move around and that needs a mobile connection. We are talking about use cases that need very high bandwidth, and we talk about use cases that need very low latency. These use cases, however, are still in a very proof of concept stage, I would say, in many cases, at least on mobile, or in some areas still even R&D is required, or the 5G standards are not even finalized yet. So technologies such as network slicing, which is required for this, the standards are just being finalized. And these are use cases where we talk about business AR, MR, or the NFL example. So if you from Amazon, so if you basically want to deliver this experience live in a big stadium, you would need 5G connectivity, which everybody can relate to. That has recently been to a Ed Sheeran concert here in Thailand. So here the mobile network couldn't take any connections at all. How big these use cases will be, nobody knows. Will it be Apple Watch big or Google Glass big, or will it be iPhone big? We don't know. Right? It can be like that the use case, but could also be that users don't really see benefit or value in it. Now, what will the 5G rollout look like? We won't see all of these benefits at once, but we will basically see 5G rollout in stages. Very likely is that we see fixed wireless first, so a replacement of home fiber connections in very specific areas. And based on the back of this very specific area rollout, basically mobile broadband moving from 4G to 5G. Eventually, we will also see IoT moving to a 5G standard. Today, a lot is already possible on 4G. There is very little benefit of 5G unless we talk about low latency or extra security. So the last one that we will see are all the low latency use cases. Here we need extra infrastructure that will be more expensive to deploy. We talk about edge computing, where we bring edge servers closer to the customer. So the status of 5G in Thailand, we often ask. So DTAC is already preparing for 5G for a very long time. Even today, we are already deploying 5G technologies in our network. We don't do the fake 5G like AT&T, but what we actually see is a recent speed test on our 4G TDD network. So the left-hand side is our speed test, 227 megabit per second. The recent AT&T 5G speed test was below that. So we see actually our 4G networks in Thailand can already deliver a lot what 5G can deliver elsewhere. Now lastly, what is the path for Thailand to 5G? So three things we need. The first and foremost thing is spectrum, high, mid and low band. So just this week, the Thai government will allocate low band spectrum, very crucial for 5G. But the roadmap overall in the future is not really finalized, and spectrum prices in Thailand are very high. So we basically need a spectrum roadmap that is well defined and where the prices are manageable to maximize the benefit for the overall society. The second element is we as telcos also have to transform using existing 4G technologies to actually prepare for the new and upcoming use cases. As I said, our struggle is we need to provide more data at the same price. That means we are under a lot of pressure to develop new revenue streams and profit pools. That means we need to prepare today also to deliver value beyond connectivity. And the way we want to do this is together with partners. So we see many innovative partnerships coming up. We are partnering in the area of smart farming, for example, with fertilizer companies, with insurances. So partnerships that you didn't think of a couple of years back become now very, very crucial to really unleash the full value of 5G. Thank you very much for your attention.
I'm working for Rockwell Automation for not very long. For those of you in the manufacturing space, probably you know Rockwell very well. We are traditionally an automation company that very quickly understood how important it is to take the leap towards software and IoT. So for those familiarized with the software business, there has been a recent investment on a company called PTC that owns what is considered worldwide today to be the leading IoT platform for developers and for users. Okay, so I want to convey just a couple of key messages today. I will not make it very complex. Is this more? Yeah. And I want to start with what's happening out there in the manufacturing space. So there is a lot of hype, there is a lot of buzzwords around IoT, and we see that even though vendors and technology providers have a very clear idea of what this is about, when we look at what's happening in the real world, we see that only 28% of manufacturing companies in the world today are actually getting benefits or start to see benefits out of the initiatives that they deploy. Okay, so we see that a big part of the people are still lost in defining a roadmap, and also 37% are lost in the pilot phase. So how do I define a pilot? How do I understand what I need to do? Big part of them are crossing the line of the pilot, but still in this infinite roundabout, not really managing to get conclusions and compelling reasons to roll out at a bigger scale. And we see that 20% and 80% respectively are finally, and I think these are very small numbers to be honest, finally starting to see the benefits or even seeing benefits in the box already. So when I have to prepare a presentation like this, I decide to throw away the corporate slides and go back to square one and try to postulate the question again. What's IoT? I visit the region for the last 4 or 5 years, and you face a lot of customers that have a very clear idea of what IoT is, and I see that many of them seem to be a little bit wrong. So is IoT about smart products? And the answer is no. Yeah, of course, moving from a dumb product to a smart product and embedding software on a machine, it's not really IoT. It increases the value of your product, it might increase the value of your operations, but IoT is meant to have much more of that marginal value into your operations. The next question is IoT about connecting things? And this is actually the most common misconception. We find a lot of people that spend a significant amount of money connecting for the sake of connecting. And they still don't know what they're going to do with that data, and they still don't know what's the business value and the business benefit, but they launch their manufacturing excellence teams to start connecting everything that can be connected. So as I said, I wanted to stop here and say, okay, let's, based on the experience we have and everything we see in the region, I will dare to come with my own definition of what IoT really is. And this is applicable, of course, for the manufacturing space, but I try to keep it general as a definition of IoT. To me, IoT is the combination of technologies that will allow for the utilization of a digital twin. And we need to spend a little bit of time on that digital twin definition, because what the hell is this digital twin? It's sometimes a little bit tricky. The idea is to create significant, not marginal, significant business value by extracting actionable information from data. Let me just spend a little bit of time on those words that I highlighted in bold. What's a digital twin? Some people coming from the engineering and R&D will think a digital twin is a very complex CAE simulation model of whatever machine or whatever product. The answer is yes, of course, that's a digital twin because it represents in a virtual manner, in a mathematical way, a physical reality. Alright, so the definition is a digital twin needs to be able to represent in a realistic way, or at least in a level of realism that is enough to bring value to your business, the physical world. People will say a digital twin of a thing. Let's not twin is to represent a machine or a device or a specific component. You can have a digital twin of your supply chain. You can have a digital twin of a quality process. You can have a digital twin of a mixing process. You can have a digital twin of your planning and scheduling process. So the idea is to come up with a mathematical model to which you can do questions. How can I speed my production? How can I reduce the cost? At the expense of something else maybe. But you need to build a model to which you can do questions, and that the model will respond with the right answers or with answers that are accurate enough. How are we going to feed that model? This is where the data comes in, all right? So we need to start by the model, and the next 3 words, value, information, and data, are important. But what is really important is in which order we understand those words. And I'm very happy to hear that the message is quite common. We need to start by the value. We need to start by what is the business benefit. And I see way too many people, trust me, that start by data. I have a lot of data, let's use the data. What am I gonna do with that data? If you start by the value, defining what is your business objective, spend enough time there, don't worry. I mean, technology is not supposed to drive your business decisions. Technology is supposed to support your business decisions and to enable them. Not really to tell you what to do because you have this or that amount of data, all right? So let's sit together with your manufacturing excellence teams, with your partners, with your consultants, with This slide is not meant to be read, it's just to trigger your minds about the amount of very different categories of use cases that we need to think about, all right? And as I said, sit together with your partners, with your consultants, with your teams, define the use case, spend enough time defining the use case, don't rush into the technology. Technology is sexy, people want to use it. Some of the techies in your company will want to try this or that, but as everybody said today, and I'm very happy to resonate on that message, identify the value, because that's what it's going to make you part of this 28% that I was talking at the beginning. All right, so I will not spend much more time. The only thing I wanted to do is Rockwell as a manufacturing company has a specific value streams that now we manage to leverage with our software arm. So we understand the manufacturing space very well. We are one of the top American manufacturing and automation companies in the world. But now we're in a position to identify those use cases a little bit more in detail. This thing is not working. Can you move on to, yeah, thanks. Some of the value streams, workforce productivity. I understand that maybe salary wages in this region are not the most pressurizing topic, but remember the origin of Industry 4.0 in Germany was to actually make the best of the salaries you're paying to your people. The main problem probably here is skills. How do I keep my workforce up to date? How do I keep knowledge? When people leave or retire, how do I actually maintain this knowledge and this development that I have been investing on for so long, without actually having to spend a lot of money bringing people from other countries? So let's equip your workforce with those models, with that intelligence, so that they don't spend time doing mundane things and things that can be automated or that can be somehow taken over by machines. This doesn't mean you need to fire your people and replace them with technology. I hate that thinking. It's actually about upskilling and making sure that your people are doing the best for the company and bringing value. Next one is performance management. For the CEOs in the room, if you own a manufacturing company, what do you want to do in the morning? You want to wake up and see, how well am I doing? Am I doing well? Which one of my plants is meeting KPIs? Where do I have a struggle? Why my electricity bill is going off the roof in this plant but not in this other plant? The idea I like to present IoT if you do it well in an idealistic way, is like this crystal ball that represents in real time the reality of your company. It's like taking an X-ray of your company and understanding, okay, this is the problem that I have, this is where there is a broken bone, this is where I need to act. Today, for those CEOs in the room that need to have a quick snapshot of their KPIs or their performance, how long does it take? How much do you trust the reports that you receive? How reliable are them and how quickly do you get them? And how up to date are they as well? So IoT is the answer to giving you a real-time representation, a real-time model of what's really happening in your company. And this is going to allow you to measure performance and therefore identify where are the flaws and where you can improve. Next one is asset optimization, and this is a no-brainer, right? One of the first applications of IoT is predictive maintenance. So CapEx investments are huge in manufacturing companies. You need to spend a lot of money on very expensive machines, very expensive equipment, and downtime is a nightmare. And unexpected downtime is an even worse time, right? So there are many use cases that we have been involved in where we can already predict upfront when machines are going to fail. That will allow you to forecast, that will allow you to prepare your warehouse with the spare parts, that will allow you to plan your maintenance well in advance, and it will also allow you to evaluate whether the couple of million investment you do in a machine is actually responding in terms of amortization and in terms of utilization. So that's also very, very important, and one of the use cases that are taking off very quickly. Next is production execution. Probably the last one I will talk about is we live in this era of, we call it mass customization, where people want to go on the internet, define and customize the car from the dashboard to the color of the seats to the size of the rims, and they expect to have the car ready within 5 days. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's really happened. As a company, you want to be competitive, you want to keep your prices under control, you still need to be profitable, but you need to respond to a customer that is getting incredibly demanding. In terms of timing, in terms of the customization of the product, in terms of how quickly I want it. So if you manage to model properly your planning your scheduling, your resources for manufacturing, the materials that you need to source, the people that are available, you will be able to respond much more quickly to that demand, keeping prices under control and of course keeping your margins, which is what keeps us alive, right, as companies. Okay, and finally, and because I come across this question very often, so trying to do sales in the region for the last 4 or 5 years, and I always say it's very difficult to sell this technology, but I think it's even more difficult to buy it. OT departments, IT departments, engineering departments, maintenance engineers, all coming together and trying to agree on how to move forward in these digital initiatives. And it happened to me a couple of times already that at the very end, you get that plant manager that tells you, no, I need an Excel file with my ROI calculation. Any vendor like Rockwell, like Siemens, like PTC, like Bosch, like any of the guys out there, will show you marketing material with ROI calculations. Those ROI calculations are done in hindsight. They are always calculated after you finish the pilot, not even the pilot actually, after you roll out. Now my message is, if I ask anybody of you, what is the ROI of your smartphone? When you buy a smartphone, do you think of the ROI? Not really. But if I ask you what would be the impact of losing your phone, how much would you lose if you don't have your phone in your pocket today? You would immediately understand the trouble. Now trust me, in a few years, people will stop asking what's the ROI of my IoT investment, but everybody will immediately say, wow, what would I do if I didn't have this in my company?
Speaking about blockchain, I believe today everybody understands we move forward from internet of information to the internet of values. Something you probably have seen so much as of today, not just about, blockchain has come so far. You probably have heard it for the first time back then 10 years something ago, 2008 at the Genesis block of the Bitcoin. You have seen so much and heard so much in 2017, last year, and the Bitcoin at the peak. But here today, I'm not going to talk about the Bitcoin, and basically this is not my passion to talk about. Blockchain has come so far from its roots. Now it has been implemented to improve the business efficiency and also help out with the society issues and problems. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm looking at the whole perspective, the industries. This slides back then 2 years ago. We talked so much about how blockchain would disrupt all these industries. But now it has proven out that it's not going to be all just like disrupting. It's just going to be, promoting and help improve the efficiency of all these pain points that you have seen before. And we talked about banking, of course, in Thailand in particular. Bank getting larger, even though Thai citizens do not trust the bank, right? They trust government better, which is I kind of doubt it. We'll see that we have come so far in terms of the digital lendings and also those crowdfunding platform that we actually learn from our the lessons and try to help develop the law regulation to be more welcome than it was before. Healthcare, of course, think about if you have your own data set of your health data, but that data just happen to belong to the hospitals. Every time you need to use it, transfer it, or do anything about it, you need to ask a hospital permission. I work with one startup from Singapore and Australia that they try to monetize your own health data over the blockchain. So that can help close down those, the economic gaps or the accessibility of your very own data. So that is very interesting. We're looking at the media. Now you see that the disruption of the media industries, where everything used to go into the center. The editor-in-chief make decision of everything, but now it's not anymore. Anyone from the regional side or anywhere around the country or around the globe can create new. And that's become to the fake news problem as we see today. Blockchain, on the other hand, if we use correctly, in the right pattern, you can also reduce this kind of problem as well. Real estate, the company I work for is now in the real estate. ICORA, the company that we founded, are also looking to the tokenization of the real estate, where we can go beyond, the bank loan or traditional type of the funding through the blockchain participation of the citizens. Fundraising, you have seen it before. Logistics and supply chain happen to be another industries that are very sensitive to the information and the accuracy of the information. Imagine, the Merck line, if one paper just missed out, it's probably going to delay the whole day for one container. And imagine 1,000 of it along the road in a week. So that is a very sensitive thing that we need to look at. Legal, yes. Insurance and also the government. These are the key areas that blockchain can help improve. So I try to shy away that how blockchain would disrupt another people, but rather help them work better in the most efficient way and can help citizens participate even better in terms of the operation as a supply chain that they're working on. I'm going to throw out a little bit of use cases here that I reach out to, learn from it, about implementing it in Thailand. We have seen the blockchain in many sense in terms of digital lendings and all other. But let's switch gear to something that will help improve the supply chain. For instance, the blockchain can improve the food safety. When you look deep, when I deep dive into this industry, it's very interesting that there's a lot of fraud in the food industry. You have seen the case that actually there is a horse meat in the beef packet. You probably have seen the problem that the farmers don't get enough money because the intermediary take all the money out from certification and try to certify the quality of those vegetables. You have seen the food safety along the way. We have seen the implementation in China. The first case that I look into where Walmart actually implemented a blockchain when they order and import the pork from China, and now we see in the chickens and other vegetables. But I don't think it's a Trump era. I'm not sure about any import and export anymore. That might be another story. But it's actually see that Thailand is the kitchen of the world, and the blockchain can also help us as a consumers and also help the producers as well to become more efficient and less cost. This one that I love, thanks to Microsoft, Accenture, and UNHCR, that we have seen like we have 1/6 of the world population has no identity. That is the surface of the problem. But if you have no identity, there's no way you can access all those good stuff from education, from food safety, or any other things that we as the regular citizen can access. So this is a tremendous thing would change a whole deal in this world. We see the implementation in Austin, Texas, United States, try to put the information of homeless to blockchain in order to provide them the better service, in order to provide them better track of the policy that can help them live in the better life, not to be the homeless forever. We see the investment of the cities started in Berkeley, but also as well in Thailand, Khon Kaen, for instance, Phuket, for instance, are exploring to do the tokenized municipal bond offering in order to build the smart city on their own terms. Imagine if the city would like to sell the bond, they sell it through the banks, and the bank will sell it through variety of the stakeholders. And every stakeholders that add into the supply chain will add more fee. But in this case, the fee of organizing is much lower, so that it can allow the citizen can help invest in their own cities in much less of the money instead of $5,000 at the minimum. You can also invest your own city as small as $10 in your pocket. We just talk about the citizen participation and how it helps not just in the business side, but the city that we are living in. Education, amply or implied, work very well in South Africa. Try to track the information of the kids throughout the education and try to pinpoint much better what else that they would need. Or something that close to home, Wildchain, they just changed the name. This is a very awesome blockchain project where they would like to develop the crypto collectible in order to help change our behavior to save the ocean, live life better for the so the earth can last longer than 2100, that what we see in a lot of forecasting today. So this is just a quick brief that what we see in the development of blockchain, not just in the business side, not just in terms of the cryptocurrency and the bitcoins, but it's all about how the society become a better place for us to live in. What I do believe is our way forward. We have seen the challenges, the opportunities of the blockchain, where the transparency, the privacy, and also the traceabilities of the mechanism of blockchain can help us a lot. But at the same time, we have the challenges such as the scalability, such as, again, back to the privacy and also the cost. All of this, we never touch about the opportunity of a small SME can leverage the benefit of the blockchain. But if we can talk about the way forward, we together can do somehow co-invest. The SME, the small guys, can also use the opportunity or leverage the opportunity of blockchain in a much lesser cost. And also the implementation of the government would also help a lot of issues that we're dealing with right now. Thailand is a country that trusts the government the most in Southeast Asia. So this I think could be the next way forward for us to work together.